Thank you, Liz. That was amazing. That's great. My name is Faisal. I'm a scientist with the David Suzuki Foundation, and honored to be here today. One of Canada's biggest banks advertises its financial services with the tagline, "You're richer than you think." Now, the first time I saw this ad, I was royally pissed off, considering that most of us are not feeling particularly wealthy right now, given soaring personal debt levels, as well as insecurity around our jobs. And yet, they're right. We're loaded. Except I'd argue that our true wealth is not found in our pocketbooks, it's not found in our government coffers, it's not found in the portfolios of our corporations. Our true wealth is found in the fields, the farms, the forests that this country is blessed with, and as which David Suzuki tells us, literally form the life support systems of our communities, producing clean air, clean water, healthy food to eat, and helping us to fight climate change. Although we don't give it much thought, forests, rivers, and other ecosystems provide an astonishing suite of ecological benefits, or what scientists like myself refer to as ecosystem services. Indeed, the folks in this room and outside, we are literally sitting on a Fort Knox of ecological wealth. Trees produce oxygen and improve urban air quality by absorbing pollution and airborne particles that cause respiratory health problems for our children and our elders. Wetlands act as giant living sponges, storing, filtering, and regulating drinking water. And bumblebees, butterflies, birds, bats, and other pollinators are literally $50 flying bills in terms of their enormous economic importance for sustaining bountiful crops in farmers' fields. And Canada's old-growth forests help us to remove dangerous carbon emissions and store them in deep organic soil pools and in the deep wood of our organic forests, thereby acting as a hedge against runaway climate change. The concept of ecosystem services and their importance to sustaining the health and well-being of our communities can be broadened to not just include natural vegetation, such as urban forests and greenways, but also vegetative technologies that can restore the green infrastructure of our communities. These technologies include green roofs and green walls, rain gardens, bioswales, engineered wetlands, and stormwater ponds, which are critically important as natural flood protection for our growing urban communities. This was brought into sharp relief recently, given a number of devastating storms and floods that hit towns and cities across our country this past year. You know, getting a bucket of water dumped on your head is definitely a wake-up call to climate change. And this is something that countless commuters in my hometown of Toronto can attest to after getting drenched last summer when over 90 millimeters of rainfall, more than a month's worth, fell in less than 2 hours just as everyone was returning home from a long workday. Sensational images of the city's wettest day in recorded history flooded social media networks. Manhole covers were propelled skyward by geysers of sewage and stormwater. Cars, buses, and trains were submerged and abandoned, and there was the sudden arrival of Lake Trinity Bellwoods, the dog park area of one of the city's most popular West End hipster hangouts. Coming mere weeks after historic flooding in Calgary, these wild, wet events are unsettling reminders that our cities are vulnerable to the whims of freaky weather. Once referred to as once-in-a-century events, extreme storms are becoming disturbingly common. This is a trend that is associated with climate change and noted by a growing chorus of scientists, economists, and insurance salesmen. Yes, insurance salesmen. According to the Insurance Bureau of Canada, insurance claims for water damage caused by the 1-2 punch of extreme weather and aging infrastructure are now the leading cause of home insurance losses in many parts of the country. In fact, according to the National Roundtable on the Environment and the Economy, before it was killed by the Prime Minister, they concluded that the costs of flooding in Canada as a consequence of climate change will be $17 billion to our economy by the year 2050. People living in flood-prone areas, such as the leafy neighborhoods of Kitsilano and Vancouver and the beaches in Toronto, can expect to see their monthly premiums increase sharply as insurance companies grapple with the knowledge that climate change is a direct threat to their bottom line. Now, we clearly have to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions that cause climate change. But knowing that there are going to be dark, costly clouds on the horizon, how can we get ahead of the storm and help prepare and cope with the effects of climate change as well? One of the best strategies for dealing with severe weather events is to steal a page from Mother Nature. Let's bring nature home to the city through green living infrastructure. The problem is that most of our cities are entirely covered with concrete and asphalt. When a big storm surge hits, the impermeable landscape dramatically accelerates the volume of water as it rushes towards waterways and low-lying areas, eventually into rivers and lakes. But nature doesn't play this way. Natural ecosystems like forests, fields, marshes, and wetlands are built to absorb rainfall and slow the flow of water as it passes through vegetation and into waterways. Thus, incorporating natural systems into the built environment of our cities can effectively mitigate the intensity of storm surges. Now, interventions to bring together the natural and the built environment can range from large networks of interconnected green spaces, like Ontario's renowned Greenbelt, to small engineered systems like green roofs, permeable pavement, and green walls. And as severe weather storms become more common, the good news is that interest in preventative climate change action with green infrastructure is exploding. I'll give you two examples. The city of Philadelphia plans to spend over $2.5 billion to convert 1/3 of its impervious asphalt surface to absorptive green surfaces with things like green roofs and tree planting. And the U.S. Disaster Relief Agency, FEMA, has begun to shift billions of dollars in expenditures into securing, protecting, and enhancing urban green space as a way of protecting flood-prone areas, following the lessons learned of Hurricane Katrina and the recent Superstorm Sandy. In my hometown of Toronto, efforts to restore and enhance our city's network of ravines has included the construction of over 24 engineered new wetlands, as well as tens of thousands of trees that have been planted. And it's not just architects, engineers, and city planners who can help bring green to the city. Homeowners like us can help green our yards by planting trees and replacing paved areas with permeable landscaping. In Vancouver, resident-initiated programs have helped turn grey alleyways into engineered green country lanes. And in Toronto, the David Suzuki Foundation's new Homegrown National Park project is aiming to crowdsource a green corridor along the old Garrison Creek, which has laid buried beneath the city since the turn of the last century. It is our hope that this ambitious campaign will catalyze a range of green activities at the household, block, and neighborhood scale that will help residents reduce their vulnerability and costs associated with climate change, such as expected extreme weather events. If devastating storms are the new norm, new infrastructure will be needed. And if we're going to build, let's build green. Green infrastructure will not only help protect our homes and businesses from the effects of extreme weather associated with climate change, it will reduce the costs associated with recovery and help create greener, healthier communities. Thank you.